memory leaks down and keep things from being easily exploited. This means that if you are trying to get into the system through Postfix, you have to go through 1, 2, 3, I think maybe 4 layers of demons before you actually get to something that can exploit interesting parts of the hard drive. The entire system is controlled by the daemon called master, which reads what's in master.cf. Master.cf mostly consists of lines telling master which smaller services you want to run. Like, I don't want to run SMTP and I don't want to run local delivery because I'm handing everything off to a mail server and I'm not accepting mail myself. This means that you can turn off things that you don't want. You can also substitute your own programs for parts of the Postfix system, mostly for the external ones that either handle SMTP or local delivery, that sort of thing. But there is probably going to be some provision at some point for replacing the internal programs as well that trade mail back and forth between them. One of the nice things about Postfix is that it doesn't trust anything. It doesn't trust mail submitted to it by a user. It doesn't trust mail coming to it from the internet. It doesn't trust inter-process communication. It doesn't trust FIFOs. It is very, very, very careful and checks all of its data so as to avoid buffer overruns and interesting exploits and just general badness. So, there are 4 different queues that Postfix recognizes. Mail drop, which we already talked about, which is the directory that mail from the system comes into. Incoming, active, and deferred. So first, you send a mail, it goes to mail drop. There are some things that prob it, some preliminary address rewrites, that sort of thing. And then it goes to incoming, where it waits to go to active. Incoming is where things sit so that the active queue is very, very small. The reason for it to be small is that the active queue is the only one where all of the relevant data about a message is loaded in memory. Postfix tries very, very, very hard to not overload your memory under any circumstances, so that the bulk of your email is sitting on the hard drive instead of being in memory and taking up resources and plugging down your machine. Deferred is for non-deliverable mail, and attempts to deliver things from deferred are handled by an exponential backoff. So we try, we wait, we try again, we wait a little longer, we try again, we wait a little longer. And the idea is to not keep the active queue full of messages that are continually trying to be delivered even though they're not going to go through. And the active queue accepts messages alternately from incoming and from deferred, so that even when traffic is very, very heavy, new messages still get through and old messages still get tried. It tries to strike a balance between trying to push out the old messages and letting the new messages through. Okay, more information. Postfix.org, the homepage, more information. That should be easy to understand. There's up-to-date copies of the FAQ, all the HTML documentation, all the man pages. That's where you can get the term wall, as well as some of the author's commentary on why he did things the way he did, and where he took inspiration from, most notably Apache and Qmail. The file called install in the source tarball, it goes through and talks about basically what I did, about things you want to decide before you install the system. There is a Red Hat Postfix FAQ I mentioned to Jabber, which is how to make Red Hat and Postfix cohabit. I have not looked over it myself, but it's linked to the Postfix site. Somebody went and wrote a how-to on Postfix and SMTP authentication, and I haven't looked at that either, but it seemed like it could be useful if you are looking to authenticate your own SMTP. Postfix with Mac OS X and IMAP, which Postfix does not do POP or IMAP natively. You have to have it work with either a POP or an IMAP daemon. So there's one article on how to do it. There's a very specific how-to, Red Hat 7.1 plus Courier Mail Drop for handling local delivery, and Courier IMAP, which the person who wrote it prefers it to UW IMAP. And eventually, my synopsis of this presentation will be up on my site, probably in about a week. So, at this point, I ask you what you want to know more about. I can actually run the install script for you as a user, so they won't do anything, just so you can see what it does. I can pull up the Postfix website, and we can look at diagrams and things about how a message moves in more depth. I can pull up the website, and we can look at the more advanced configuration topics. And I can show you my own configuration files if you're interested. Yes? I'm sorry, Webmin?
Webmin.
I have not. I have not tried Webmin.
What is the URL?
Which URL?
Yours. Said you were going to post.
Oh, okay. www.consistent.org/CME.
That's up on our website.
Which directory has to be overridden?
The mail drop directory, which I think is var school postfix, or var school postfix mail drop.
Now, wouldn't it be able, a malicious user be able to create a hard link to a file in that directory
That's
and
one of
cause it to get multiply delivered?
Multiply delivered, yes, that's one of the things that can happen. It's a trade-off. You can either allow that sort of thing to happen, hope that your users won't, or you can set your ID privileges. Yeah. Yes.
Okay, one question I had, I spoke to them earlier. One of the things I want to do in BLU.org is to have a few addresses in BLU.org be different domains. For instance, the guy that runs the calendar, Al Sherman, would like his address to be at bugc@bugc.org, which is one of our virtual domains, and that's not going to be, that doesn't use mailman.
Right, okay. You can do that. Let me cause it to back up a little bit. You can do that with a virtual maps file. And I didn't...
Yeah, it's already set up and working.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to get a little bit of a... of course, bugc@blu.org isn't. I don't know why it counts this.
Oh, you didn't ask me to set it up.
I didn't set it up. I set up the account. It's a, normal account. Just for some reason, it doesn't work. I sent you the balance on that.
Okay, you said you didn't do that yet.
Yeah. Look at it. Okay.
Okay, you can do that with the virtual maps file. I have not done it myself, but if you're interested, we can go to the web browser and have a look at.
We'll see if other people want, because I can do that myself. I know John has it set up for his Hebrew accounts.
Okay. It took me an hour and a half to get Postfix installed on this machine, and an hour of that was trying to figure out why on earth XIM was still delivering emails for me. It turns out that my mail client was invoking XIM directly, and so I was still getting email through XIM, and Postfix was never seeing it. I eventually said, well, heck with this, there's nothing in my queue, I'm going to just contact XIM entirely, and Postfix started working because XIM was sort of in play. But I think it took me about 15 minutes to go through the necessary edits to the configuration file. I was very impressed.
Terry, did you add bugc.org as one of the local delivery domains?
No, my question was bugc@blu.org is broken.
You create a user bugc.
Yeah, that's Al Sherman. I don't know why that bounced. Just a regular account. That used to be ConeCal. So, anyway, we look at that.
Actually, I think what I had to do when I created a user, I had to actually create a zero-line file in the mail school.
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay.
I was wondering if you or anybody else knows the pros and cons of Postfix versus Qmail besides documentation. Because there is documentation for QMail, it's just really, really, really hard to find, and you got to dig a lot.
Yes. Some people would consider a major con of QMail to be DJB himself.
Yeah.
While the maintainer of Postfix is also a big wheel in the security movement, he wrote Satan, among other things. He is not generally considered, I don't believe, to be quite as psychotic as a lot of people consider DJB to be. I know a lot of people who refuse to use Zenmail because they don't like DJB. Another... I'm sorry, I did, QMail. QMail is what I meant, I'm sorry. Another pro for Postfix versus QMail is the distribution, because QMail has limited distribution because of its license. Yeah. And you know, there is the great license debate again, which the Postfix license is a little bit more free than the QMail license.
Why? What are the cons of the QMail license? I don't know what license it's under.
It's under one of DJB's own. It's similar to the, I think it's the same as the one that DJBS is, DNS, is distributed under. As far as I remember, I don't remember it very well, so maybe somebody else here can correct me if they remember better. DJB needs to be the one distributing the program. So you can't rebundle it as binaries, you can't rebundle it with your patches, it needs to come from him.
Can't see the call.
I'm sorry?
Can't see the call out, you have to send it to him.
Yeah.
And he can answer or not.
Right. He can either add what you submit to the source himself, or you can distribute your patch separately, but you can't redistribute QMail with your changes. And the reason he did that, as far as I know, is that he has very firm ideas about what is secure and what isn't, and he wants his program to be known to be really, really, really secure. And if you go around adding random code to QMail and then you go redistribute it and there's a hole, it makes him look bad. Which in some ways is a reasonable enough opinion. On the other hand, it makes it really hard to do anything custom to software. And that means every time that you download a new tarball, you have to reapply all the patches that you wanted applied to it and compile it. This pisses a lot of people off.
It's the same problem we used to have with Linux before it's like the Linux growth.
Yes, exactly. A possible pro for QMail, however, is that it could. I don't know of any exploits for either Postfix or QMail, but QMail sacrifices more configurability than Postfix does to be more secure. So there are some things that QMail does not let you do by design. And the reason is that DJB considers this to be an insecure thing to want to do.
And QMail uses setuid for the...
A setUID, yes.
Right, versus...
One other, so that reminded me, one problem that you can have, especially with Red Hat because it uses Linux Conf, and I think Susan was also mentioned, Linux Conf thinks your sendmail binary should be setuid. For Postfix, it should not be. So Linux Conf will go merrily around changing your sendmail binary to be setuid every time you change it back. And there's a couple of workarounds in the fact of that if you want them, if you don't want it to be setuid.
I thought Red Hat wasn't using that anymore.
It may not be. The last Red Hat I used was 6.2.
Ah, okay.
So...
SUSE does a different, SUSE uses a different configuration, but it does not use Linux Conf.
Okay. Ah, interesting. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I haven't used any of the seven releases. That was a known problem, and I think the fact also mentions that some versions of SUSE do the same thing with their own configuration utility. So there are users.
SUSE uses YAST.
Okay.
You can configure. You can actually go in and actually tell it not to do it.
Right. Yeah. There was a listing on the website for how to do that. Yeah. Which I don't remember myself.